Hello world, welcome to NetMath and Tech Academy. In today's episode, we are going to see a quick Pygame module, a Pygame tool to manipulate photos, not necessarily to edit photos, but to manipulate photos, to apply filters and so on. This is how our final project is going to look like. So we have a photo here and we have few buttons here. If I click on the button gray, then my photo becomes a grayscale photo. I can click revert to bring it back, and I can also manipulate colors. For example, if I click on color, that'll make all the green color in the photo disappear, and then I can revert it back. We'll see how to make this one and also see what are the possible other extensions we can do to this app. Let's jump right in. Let's start by creating a new Pygame. So we need the photo that we want to edit. So let me just add the photo in here. So now we see that we have the photo. So let's start by changing the value of this variable. I'll just make the screen a 400 screen, and I'm gonna make a clock for my Pygame. So Pygame dot time dot clock. So this way I'll be able to control the frame rates. Let me set it to 60. Okay. And let me also fill the background. So display dot fill. I'll just fill it with gray color. So let's quickly run it to see. So this is our basic Pygame code with a loop to handle the event for quit. We are filling the background with gray color and we are refreshing the screen inside every loop, and we have set the frame rate to 60 seconds. And here is where we are setting the caption. We can change this to photo filter. By the way, we are gonna use the pill or the pillow library from Python for manipulating the photos. Okay, to begin with, let's start by showing the photo on the screen. So we can do this by opening the image with Pygame itself. So let me make a variable called dog. So pygame dot load pygame dot image dot load, and let me load the image dog dot jpeg, and let me try and show this image onto the screen. So I would first get the rectangle of this object. So this will let me render it properly. Let me make a surface for it, which will be a Pygame surface, and I can set the size of the surface. So my screen is 400. I'll set the surface to 300, 200. Let's see how that goes. And now all that is pending is for us to put this dog image into the dog surface. We can do that by dog surface dot split dog, and the location where it's going to be present is the dog rect. So when we create the dog rectangle, so we open the image, we get the rectangle of that, we make a surface and we applet it. So now this surface has the dog image, but the other step that we have to do is split this surface into our actual display. So display dot split, and we are going to split the dog surface. So this way we will be able to show the dog, and at this point we can specify the coordinates. Let me try 50-50 and let's see what happens. So dog surface equal to pygame dot surface. Let's try that. Okay, that's good. So at this point we can see some part of the image being shown, but it's not very clear. That could be because this image is too big and we are seeing probably only this part of the image, the top right corner. So it's better to transform the image so it can fit into it. So we are going to do pygame dot transform dot scale, and we will scale the image to our surface screen. So now the image will be made smaller, and that will help us to display the image properly. So we have to scale the dog image. Okay, that's good. Perfect. Now that we see our image, everything seems good. Now let's go to the part where we want to add buttons onto the screen, because we want to click the buttons to apply the filters. So we're going to make a button called button gray, and we are going to make it in such a way that this button will be a rectangle by default, and I'm going to set the position, the width, and the height of the button. And the next step for us is to make it a rectangle object for it. So we can actually do that inside. So now let's, after drawing the dog surface, let's see how we can actually show this button onto the screen. We can do that by calling the pygame dot draw dot rect. And in which surface do we want to draw this? We want to draw it in the display surface. And what is going to be the color of this rectangle? Let's go with black. And what is the actual rectangle that we want to draw? Which is the B gray. So now let's quickly run it to see if everything looks good. Yes, we can see it. It'll be nice to see some text in there. So that means we need a font. So let's create a font here. So font equal to pygame dot font. Okay, so at this point we can just use one of the sys fonts. I'll just use the Arial font, and then I'll say set the color, and bold is false and italic is false. Good. So now that I have a font, I'll be able to write text onto the screen. Let's create a text surface, and we are gonna make this surface as font dot render. The text that we want to render onto the button is gray, and we are going to set the next parameter to false, which will be like that. And finally we are going to specify what color the text should be. I'll make it white. Now that we have our text surface, we have to display dot blit it, and we're going to blit the text surface onto the same rectangle. So now if I stop and run it, I should see this black box, which will be our button with a white text on it called gray. So what is expected when I click on this button? I want this image to turn into a grayscale image. Perfect. So before we do that, let's first handle the event dot type equal to pygame dot mouse dot mouse Pygame dot mouse down, mouse button down. Oh, I think mouse button up will be better. So that's when we click and we release. Okay. So when we click on the mouse and when we release it, we are going to check if my B gray button dot collide point is actually Pygame dot mouse dot position. So that will give me my mouse position. So let's just print here and say gray button click. Let's see if this works. So stop, run. So now if I click anywhere else, nothing happens. But if I click on this box, it says gray button click. So that way we have tapped into the event of mouse. So next thing for us to do is to bring in our pillow library. So from we are going to import image and image ops. Okay, good. So since we are also going to build a feature where we can revert back to the original always, we need to make sure any manipulation that we do do not affect the original file. So what we are going to do is we are going to open the original dog file and we are going to save it as dog2.jpg. So basically we have made a copy of the dog file. That's good. So whatever manipulation that we do, we will always try to do it for the copy file. So let's stop and run this to see if another file gets created. So we'll have to give Replit a second for it to import or install the build package. Perfect, everything is good. And now we see a new file was also created, a copy file. Now let's make a function to handle the gray event. So all we are going to do here is manipulate the dog surface. So next time inside the loop and the dog surface gets blitted, we will see the new manipulated image. So we are going to work with the same variable dog surface. So let's go ahead and make it global. And this time, what we are going to do is we are going to open the original image just like we did before, transform it, and on top of this, we are also going to apply our filter. So to do that, what we have to do is, okay, so let's first apply the filter. So I'm gonna open our original image, which is dog.jpg, and then I'm going to use our image ops and apply a grayscale filter for our original image, but we are going to save it as doc2.jpg. So this way, what will happen? We are not changing the original image, we just open it, we did some changes on the fly, but when we saved it under the new file. Perfect, great. So all that now we have to do is to make sure that we show this new image onto the screen, and the logic for that is this one. So let's just make a function out of it. I'll just call it show dog, and I'll move all this code here, and I will make global dog surface. So we are not using it here. So we have the make gray function. It applies the grayscale and saves it at dog2. And in the show dog, we will open the dog2, transform it and show it onto the screen. We just have to call the show dog function once and the program starts. So now let's stop and run this. Let's see everything is good. Now if I click on the button, nothing happens. We are not calling the function yet. So this function is called make gray. So let's call the function here. Perfect. So now if I stop and run this, and if I click on the button, I do not see any change because, okay, we have not called the show dog function in here. So let's try that one more time. Okay, that's good. So when I click on the button, make gray function gets called, and we open the original image and save it with a grayscale, and the show dog image gets called, and show dog opens dog2 and shows it onto the screen. Okay, everything seems to be working fine. Now only thing we have to do is, let's say, make a copy of the button. We can call this as revert, and let's just move this a little bit so it doesn't coincide with the same one. I'm gonna call this make revert. So here we will open the original image and save it as dog2 without applying the grayscale. So all we have to do now is show the new button onto the screen. So it's not going to be gray, it's going to be revert. So we're gonna use revert. We're gonna call this revert. Okay. So now if I stop and run this, I should see another button called revert. So I can apply the grayscale and I can click revert to go back to the original image, but we have not done the collide point yet. So revert dot collide point. So we can say revert button is clicked and then call the make revert function. So if I stop and run this, I can click on gray to make it gray, revert to revert it, gray, revert. So just like grayscale, there are other operations as well that we can do with ImageOps. For example, posterize is one option where we can posterize the image. So now let's see how this one works. Now I can click on this one to make it a poster, and I can still click on revert. So any filter that is available in the ImageOps fill library can be applied. So if we quickly look at the document of this one, ImageOps Pillow library, and then we will see there are quite a few filters available, like grayscale, invert, mirror, posterize. All these things can be and solarize. So if we do a invert, and if I change this to back to grayscale and change this to invert, then this button will invert the image and I can still revert back. That's good. Now that we have identified how to do it with the ImageOps filters, let's also understand how to do pixel level manipulations. Like we can loop through each pixel of this image and manipulate the RGB value of it. And in order to do that, we are going to need the image data. So how do we get the image data? So first time when we open the image, we can get the image data by using the function load. So this will load the whole pixel data into this variable image data. So now let's see how we can actually use this one, the image data. Perfect. So what we are gonna do is we are also going to get the height and the width of this original image by using the dog.size function. So now I have the image data, I have the height and width. Let's quickly create a new button and then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna call this button be green, let's say. I'm gonna move this button a little bit. I'm gonna call this function make green less. So let's leave this function as is for now. Let's go ahead and create the button so it gets visible on the screen. So this button is called be green. I'm gonna call this green minus because it's gonna get rid of all the greens in the image. And let's go ahead and finish the collide point. So be green, and we are gonna call the make green less function. Okay, so let's just run this and see everything is still working. So green make green less is not defined. Okay, let's fix the typo here. So one more time, run it, click on the button. Okay, revert, gray, what? Everything looks good. There is one problem here. We cannot call the gray function again. So let's run this one more time. So gray, revert, green, revert, gray, revert. Okay, all good. So now what should we do when the greenless function is called? We are going to work with the image data and the height and width of the image. So let's open the original image, get the image data. Now we have the height and width of the image. All we have to do is loop into it. So for I in range height, or maybe I'll call it H, for W in range width. So we are looping into height and width so we can access each pixel. So we can get the individual RGB value of each pixel by accessing the image data, which is a two-dimensional list, So for that height and for that width. So now that we have the RGB information, what we can do is we can manipulate this image data back, and when we put it back, we are going to put the R value as the same, but we are going to make green value 0. So basically we are putting the red and the blues, but we are totally removing the greens. And then we save this image into the dog2 image. So now let's see what happens. So I can click on the green less button, and then there is an error here. Let's see what is wrong. The argument must be of length 2. So this has to be like this. Okay, good. So I click on the green less button, and we have this error at one more place. Fix it and run it. And that takes away all the greens in the image. I can go ahead and revert it, and let's say I now change this to remove the reds as well, and all that is left is only blue. So now let's see what happens. So only blue color is there, both the red and green are gone. I can revert it. What if I swap the green and the red colors? That gives me a new effect as well. So all the greens have become red and all the reds have become green. So these are a few pixel level manipulations that we can do, but the idea is the same. You open the original, make whatever change we want to do, save it as the doc2, and when you show the image, you take it from the doc2. So similarly, we can create multiple buttons for different efforts, and we can also make a save button which will save it in a different name to make a copy of it. And main thing to note here is not to edit the original image and only work with the copy of the image so we don't lose the original. Perfect. Thank you, friends. Hope you had fun learning how to do image manipulations in Pygame with the build library. I had so much fun talking through this program. We'll meet again in the next episode. Bye, world.